Hey there guys, alright, today we are back with some more geography now. This time we're on to the seas! The first sea, Cambodia. Before we dive into the video, make sure you go check out the links below in the description box. Go join the Discord. Love to have you. Now, aside from words, my brain's not working right now. Having a lot of issues with the fucking recording software lately, and it's just pissing me off. Let's dive into the video.
Hey Geography peeps, so this episode is going to have some bad audio because I'm currently in my parents' basement filming this, not at the YouTube space, and the microphone we typically use doesn't fit into the audio jack in my camera, so just bear with me, and we're going to basically go back to the quality of Afghanistan.
Yeah?
It's time to learn
It's very nostalgic.
geography now!
Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbie. This is our first country with the letter C, Cambodia, and basically Cambodia had a relatively normal life until 4 really messed up years kind of ruined everything for them. But before we talk about that, let's dissect the flag.
Which 4 years are we talking about? There are a lot of 4 years.
The flag is pretty simple and conveniently symbolic. There are 3 bands, 2 blue on the top and bottom, and red in the middle. In the center you have a picture of the Temple of Angkor Wat, the symbolic country-defining icon of Cambodia. Blue is a traditional color of royalty and red represents the Cambodian people. The white of Angkor Wat symbolizes the spirituality of Cambodia as it is a heavily Buddhist nation. Keep in mind, this was actually the original flag from 1948 before a lot of crazy stuff happened. A bunch of other flags ensued until they finally came back to this one. Alright, now let's talk about all that craziness, shall we? No clever anecdote, let's just jump into it this time. Cambodia is located in Southeast Asia, bordered by Thailand to the west, Laos to the north, and Vietnam to the east, and the Bay of Thailand to the south. The country is divided into 25 provinces, and the capital is Phnom Penh. That's right, people, it's pronounced Phnom Penh, not Phnom or Phnom Penh. Phnom Penh, formerly named Chakdong is actually very conveniently located in the country because it's where the Mekong, the Lower Mekong, the Basak, and Sap rivers all converge into one point. This is also where the royal family lives and is a bustling city overtaken by mopeds, bicycles, and roads with no stop signs making traffic a free-for-all. Should I signal? Should I signal? Wait, who cares? Good luck, everybody else! Off the coasts, without including the small islets and rocks, Cambodia has over 80 main islands that they have sovereignty over, most of which are close to the coast, easily accessible. Some you can even see from beaches like Snake Island, visible from the interestingly named Hawaii Beach. The furthest of these islands
Does Snake Island have a lot of fucking snakes on it? I have a feeling it does.
and the southernmost point of Cambodia is the Kopo Luai Islands, which were originally just used for military bases, but are now open to the public for tourists. Now, for the longest time, Cambodia was actually split kind of east and west by the Mekong River, and the only way to get across was either by ferry or to fly. In 2001, they opened their first bridge across the Mekong River, the Kizuna Bridge,
Really? It wasn't until 2001? Damn.
by the Japanese government, and finally it joined the 2 parts of Cambodia by road for the first time. Since then, 3 more have been built, and more are projected to come in the future. Now, of course, when going to Cambodia, the landmark that pops up into everybody's mind immediately is Angkor Wat, the ancient ruins of the Khmer Empire. The town nearby, Siem Reap, actually has an international airport, so you can just fly over there rather than go to Phnom Penh and then take a bus, which, by the way, is not really advised because things get a little shady in the rural areas. We'll explain more about that in the demographics. Just keep walking, bub. You didn't see nothing here. Now, if you look at Angkor Wat, you'll not only notice the stunningly enticing view of botanically dominated temples and pagodas that have trees growing out of them, but you'll also notice that it has these perfectly straight geometric moats and reservoirs adjacent to the ruins. These were cleverly constructed by the empire to aid irrigation and in return feed an entire city that is speculated to have the largest pre-industrial metropolis in Asia during that time. Otherwise, most areas in Cambodia have villages that function in a subtropical developing way heavily based on the environment. Now let's discuss that environment.
I like discussing environments. Let's go.
Now this is where things get really colorful, because Cambodia is kind of like a landscape marvel. The country is generally characterized as having a low-lying central plain with hilly and light mountainous regions in the southwest, and especially in the border by Vietnam. In this country, rivers are everywhere, and in the top middle corner you can find Tonle Sap, which is the largest freshwater lake in all of Southeast Asia. Tonle Sap expands dramatically in the wet season and is home to an enormous cluster of biodiversity, including over 200 species of freshwater fish, like the giant barbfish.
Holy fuck. That thing is huge. Thing is thick.
The national fish of Cambodia that can reach lengths up to 3 meters long. In your face, Japan, with your yellowfish tuna! This is how we roll in Cambodia! Now, of course, one of the best things about Cambodia would have to be the food. The World Rice...
I mean, I feel like the best thing in every nation is food. Food is Wonderful.
Conference actually voted Cambodia as having the best rice in the world 3 years in a row. And here's possibly one of the reasons why. Like many other third world countries, the good thing is that the food is mostly fresh and organic, partially because most people can't afford pesticides. Therefore, almost every time you get a wholesome, pure batch of produce. Now, although fish is the main source of protein that's consumed, the majority of Cambodians are entomophagous, or people who consume insects in their diet. Insects
I could never. I could
are
never.
actually very nutritious, low in fat and carbs, and high
I don't care how nutritious they are. Even if you fry them, no thank you.
in protein, and can be sold at the same
Was that snake? Did I see snake? Like, what is that snake? That looks like snake.
carbs and high in protein, and can be sold at the same weight for the fraction of the price that the mainstream meats would cost for, like beef and chicken. Now, despite the fresh food, Cambodia's economy is actually more heavily dependent on textiles and footwear. Just look at the tag on your shirt. It might just be from Cambodia.
I think mine are usually Vietnam.
As well as tourism. Hey, Janice, I found that Angkor Wat.
That is a totally Midwestern mom right there.
What? Cambodia still maintains and facilitates elephant sanctuaries for the majestic Asian elephant, almost revered in some parts as keepers take great care of them as a source of their livelihood, especially when tourists come and kind of want to ride them. Hey Janice, I'm riding an elephant! What? Now, here's the sad thing. Because of its brutal past that we'll discuss in the next section, UNESCO has actually listed Cambodia as the third most landmine country in the world, with about 4 million landmines that still need to be cleared out from the area. Now, because of this, Cambodia actually has the highest per capita percentage of amputees in the world. Each month there are about 300 to 700 new amputations due to landmine injuries. The country is slowly trying to fix this problem, but for the time being, the plausible threat still lingers, especially in rural, secluded areas. Now let's explain more about how this came to be in...
I'm guessing Pol Pot, right?
Okay, first off, let's distinguish a few confusing nuances that people seem to have with Cambodia's demographical titles. Now, it's perfectly acceptable to refer to somebody in Cambodia as a Cambodian, and although the term Cambodian is kind of a universally interchangeable term to refer to the Cambodian ethnicity, the technically correct term to refer to the Cambodian ethnicity would be Khmer. Yeah, that's right. All this time you thought it was Khmer, right? No, it's Khmer.
To be fair, I did pronounce it as Khmer for I don't know how long.
R is silent, and the E is an I. The Cambodian language is also called Khmer, and as well as the script and the culture.
So, Khmer is a... Well, okay. Well, I guess that works for... That's the same with English. The language is called English, the people are called English, and the writing is English. So, yeah. The text is Khmer, people are Khmer, words that they speak are Khmer.
Speaking of which, people who speak Khmer can understand a little bit of Thai and Lao, as the languages have piggybacked off of each other for centuries. Most Khmer people can understand about a quarter to a third of the Thai and Lao languages if they listen really hard. The problem is, unlike Khmer, Thai and Lao are actually tonal languages, whereas Khmer isn't. So it can be a little confusing, but overall it's like a code game when they talk to each other. Vietnamese, though, is completely unintelligible to them. That being said, Cambodia has about 15.5 million people, the vast majority, around 90%, are...
Well, I was thinking they had more than that. I was thinking they were upwards of 50.
Ethnically Khmer, about 5% are Vietnamese, 1% Chinese, and the remainder come from various people groups. About 95% of the country is Buddhist, adhering to the Theravada branch of Buddhism, and Islam and Christianity make up about 2% each, with the remaining 1% being other affiliations. Now, in order to understand Cambodia, you kind of have to understand where it came from and how it got to where it is today. You know how I do things. I'm going to summarize this in the quickest way I can. Kingdom, protectorate, occupied, kingdom, republic, really bad dictatorship, Vietnamese puppet, transitional state, and finally monarchy all over again. The really bad dictatorship was the Communist Party, the Khmer Rouge. They took over in the 70s and killed around 1/5 of Cambodia's population, approximately 1.5 to 3 million people. The victims were mostly educated people that were deemed a threat to the regime, as well as priests and monks, as the Marxist-influenced ideologies of Pol Pot instituted and forced a secular state that opposed and outlawed all types of religion. Books were burned, temples and churches were ransacked. So essentially, that explains why today, about half of the population is about 15 and under. The genocide of the 70s
Wow.
effectively cut off an entire generation, and those left would eventually have an explosion of children outnumbering themselves within a few decades. Speaking of which, Cambodia is the only country in Asia that has a king of part French descent, and he's also the only monarch in Asia that speaks Czech fluently. Culture-wise, Cambodia really sticks out.
Nice, I think. Why? I don't know. but nice.
A lot of the customs are heavily influenced by Theravada Buddhism and traditional Khmer rituals. As a classified third world country, Cambodians live off of an average salary of $2.60 a day. One thing you have to understand is that, like many other countries in Southeast Asia, Cambodians are masters of vocational improvisation. Since the economy is highly unregulated, working in Cambodia is kind of like a free-for-all. When it comes to money, you can pretty much be and do anything you want. This can be a good and a bad thing because it allows Cambodians to innovate on all sorts of hustling. For example, you can start your own street corner gas station. All you need is a steel drum and an air compressor. Heck, you can even sell gas in used pop bottles. And for
That's
the record,
fucking
Jagger
cool.
peeps, yes, I grew up in the Midwest. I call it pop. I refuse to call it soda.
Yes, Barbie, I knew I liked you.
Don't even get soda. No, I refuse to call it that. However, the downside is that it also opens up the door for a lot of controversial
But I also say, like, I obviously lean towards pop, but I also just say soda pop. You know, I say soda pop more often than I'll say soda. Soda just sounds weird on its own. Like soda sounds like something you gotta say it with pop. Like it's gotta be soda pop. It can't just be soda. But pop can stand on its own. Therefore, it is superior.
underground
And also, if you're a Southerner and you say Coke, you're fucking wrong. There are other drinks other than Coke. Come on.
corrupt industries. Cambodia has some of the highest rates of human trafficking in the world, including the trafficking of children. It's sad, but it has to be addressed because it's true and it can't be glossed over. For a third world country where poverty is quite rampant, Cambodians may have to hustle, but they are surprisingly thrifty as well. After the monarchy was reestablished, the government encouraged people to move back to abandoned towns by offering them free homes. These are typically used to operate small businesses like grocery stores, restaurants, and moped repair shops, and so on. Cambodia has dealt with a lot in the past half century and is trying to grow, and sometimes to grow, you need a little help from
International friends.
Have you ever had a friend that you realized would soon become a really terrible roommate? Yeah, that's kind of the situation that Cambodia got itself in. Although relations are generally okay today, Cambodia does essentially have a little bit of historical beef with its neighbors Thailand and Vietnam. Historically, Thailand used to be the arch enemy of Cambodia and went through a number of conquests to rule over the entire area. To this day, they still have few disputes over the Preah Vihear province. I hope I pronounced that right, probably not. And about 10 years ago, riots broke out and flags and embassies were burned down as a Thai actress claimed that Angkor Wat belonged to Thailand. Vietnam was kind of like the ulterior motive friend who kept saying, hey, I'll protect you, and in return, I'll just kind of control over you. Cool? France still has relatively good ties with Cambodia and not only has bilateral agreements and embassies, but also helps out with internal development. Many schools and universities are funded by the French and are instructed in French as well. However, due to the tourism sector, Cambodians are favoring English more as a second language rather than French, but they still teach
Take that,
in
France.
terms of their best friends,
Get
however,
wrecked.
Cambodia would actually probably say China, Japan, and South Korea. All three of these countries invest the heaviest in
Really? Japan? Based on history? Huh. This is what I don't think the Vietnamese care for the Japanese, right? Not too sure. Yeah. It's interesting that Cambodia kind of actually gets along with them.
in the country's infrastructure, and they have helped build roads, buildings, malls, and business centers all over. Large flocks of Koreans and Japanese regularly visit Cambodia for vacation and are welcomed with open arms. In conclusion, Cambodia is a very vibrant, colorful nation that had a really bad punch to the gut in the 70s, but they didn't throw in the towel just yet, and they're just starting to get their breath back, stand up, and get ready for another round. Stay tuned, Cameroon is coming up next.
And that was Geography Now Cambodia. I hope you guys enjoyed. I certainly did. I think this was a really well-paced episode. I think this time limit did fit Cambodia pretty well. Obviously, probably actually could have gone a bit more into that probably friend zone thing. That did feel a little short. But it's still good overall. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.